The facility never slept. Bright white lights stayed on day and night, and the sound of machines never stopped. Deep under the metal structure, humans worked long hours without asking questions. Everyone knew the rule. Do your job, keep your head down, and never look at the giants for too long. Rian followed that rule every day. He was one of the lowest workers in the facility. His job was simple: clean the lower levels, remove waste, and stay invisible. People like him were easy to replace, and he knew it. So he worked quietly and avoided trouble. But everyone in the facility knew what happened on level 7. That was where the giants were tested. No one spoke about it openly, but workers whispered during breaks. Giants who passed the test were taken away for breeding programs or military use. Giants who failed were marked for final slaughter. Their bodies were turned into energy for the Empire. No giant ever came back. One evening, alarms sounded through the corridors. Workers stopped and moved aside as heavy doors opened. Large transport machines rolled past, carrying something massive inside energy chains. Rian kept his eyes down until he heard the sound. It was not anger, not rage. It sounded like silence. He looked up for just a second. Inside the containment field stood a giantess. She was taller than anything he had ever seen, her head almost touching the upper structure of the transport cage. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, and her expression was calm, almost peaceful. She was not fighting. That was strange. Most giants resisted. Some screamed. Some tried to break free. This one simply watched. Their eyes met for only a moment before the transport moved on. But something about that look stayed with him. She did not look defeated. She looked certain. Later that night, Rian checked the system records while cleaning near the control room. Workers were not supposed to read classified files, but curiosity pulled him closer. Subject name: Alara. Status: Reproduction test. Failed. Disposition: final slaughter scheduled in 72 hours. Rian frowned. Failed reproduction tests were common, but something felt wrong. Giants were strong, valuable. Why destroy one so quickly? He tried to forget about it. But the next night, his cleaning route took him near the holding chambers. The air there felt colder. Heavy doors sealed each room, and energy barriers hummed quietly. Alara stood behind one of them. She was sitting against the far wall, her arms resting on her knees. When Rian entered the corridor, her eyes opened slowly, as if she already knew he was there. Rian froze. Workers were told never to approach or speak to giants. He should have turned around immediately. Instead, he stood still. Alara watched him in silence. There was no anger in her face, only curiosity. Then something strange happened. A voice appeared inside his mind. Not loud, not frightening, just clear. Why do humans obey those who fear them? Rian's breath stopped. He looked around, thinking someone had spoken through a speaker. The corridor was empty. The voice came again, softer this time. You are afraid, but not of me. His hands trembled. Giants were not supposed to communicate like this. At least, that was what the Empire said. I can't talk to you, Rian whispered. Alara tilted her head slightly, studying him. You already are. You should have left. Every instinct told him to walk away. But something kept him there. Maybe it was the calm in her voice. Maybe it was the way she looked at him. Not like a servant, but like a person. Why didn't you fight? He asked quietly. Alara's expression did not change. Because passing the test would mean living as a prisoner. Rian did not understand. You failed on purpose? He asked. Yes. The answer shocked him more than anything else. Outside the chamber, warning lights blinked softly. Time was running out before guards returned. Before Rian could move, Alara spoke again inside his mind. If I die here, she said calmly, many others will follow. Rian felt a chill run through his body. He did not know what she meant, but her words felt heavy with truth. Footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor. Guards were coming. Rian quickly turned and walked away, his heart racing. He told himself it was none of his business. Just another giant. Just another execution. But that night, sleep did not come. He kept hearing her question again and again. Why do humans obey those who fear them? And for the first time, Rian wondered if the giantess marked for slaughter was not the one truly trapped inside the facility. because somewhere deep inside, he felt certain of one thing. Alara was not waiting to die. She was waiting for something to change. Rian tried to forget the Giantess. The facility returned to its normal routine the next morning. Machines moved, alarms sounded, and workers followed orders without thinking. Nothing had changed on the surface. But inside Rian's mind, Alara's words would not disappear. If I die here, many others will follow. He did not understand what she meant, and that made it worse. During work, he noticed things he had ignored before. Security around level 7 had increased. More guards stood near the control rooms. System access was restricted. Even the supervisors spoke in quiet voices. Something was happening. That night, Rian checked the system again while cleaning. He knew it was dangerous, but curiosity pushed him forward. He searched Alara's file one more time. Most of the data was locked, but one line caught his attention. Reproduction test result. Subject refused compliance. Rian frowned. Failed was not the same as refused. Before he could read more, footsteps echoed behind him. He quickly closed the screen and continued cleaning as a guard passed by. His heart beat fast. Workers were punished for far less. Later, as his shift ended, he found himself walking toward the holding chambers again. He told himself it was only part of his route. But he knew the truth. He wanted answers. The corridor was quiet. The energy barriers hummed softly, casting blue light across the walls. Alara stood this time, already watching him as he approached. You came back. Her voice appeared gently in his mind. I shouldn't be here, Rian whispered. Yet you are. He hesitated before speaking again. You didn't fail the test. You refused it. Alara remained silent for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. The test is not about life, she said. It is about control. Rian felt confusion rising inside him. The Empire always said the test helped preserve giant species, that they were necessary. What do you mean? He asked. Alara stepped closer to the barrier. Even separated by energy fields, her presence felt overwhelming. But her voice stayed calm. Giants who reproduce freely cannot be controlled. The Empire allows only those who obey. The words felt dangerous just hearing them. They remove those who choose differently, she continued. They call it failure. Rian looked down, tried to process it. If this was true, then the slaughter was not about survival. It was about fear. Suddenly, alarms flickered briefly above the corridor before returning to normal. Alara's eyes shifted toward the ceiling. They are watching more closely now, she said. Rian felt it too. Cameras moved slightly, tracking motion. Security had changed since her arrival. Why tell me this? He asked quietly. I'm nobody here. Alara studied him carefully. Because you still question. No one had ever said that to him before. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt strange, but not uncomfortable. Rian realized something unsettling. He was not afraid of her anymore. He was afraid for her. What happens in 3 days? He asked. Even though he already knew. Alara answered simply. ED. The words were calm, but something inside Rian tightened. And you just waiting? Her eyes softened slightly. No. Before he could ask more, she continued. There's a way out, but I cannot leave alone. Rian looked up sharply. Escape? That was impossible. The facility was surrounded by defenses, scanners, and armed guards. You're asking me to help you, he said. I am asking you to choose, Alara replied. The meaning hit him immediately. Helping her would mean betrayal. The Empire did not forgive betrayal. Execution was certain. Rian stepped back, shaking his head slightly. I can't. I'll die. Alara did not argue. She only said, You're already living inside fear. The words stayed in the air between them. Footsteps echoed again at the end of the corridor. Guards were returning sooner than expected. Rian turned to leave, his thoughts racing. As he walked away, Alara's voice reached him one last time. If I escape, others will live. If I die, the slaughter continues. That night, Rian lay awake in his small room, staring at the ceiling. He had spent his whole life surviving by staying quiet, by following orders. But now a choice stood in front of him. Help her and lose everything, or walk away and know exactly what would happen next. Far below the facility, security systems updated silently. Execution time for subject Alara moved forward. Only 48 hours remained, and Rian still had no idea why the Giantess trusted a poor human with her freedom. Rian did not sleep that night. The words repeated again and again in his mind. There's a way out. He tried to ignore them, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Alara standing alone behind the energy barrier, waiting calmly for death. Morning came too quickly. The facility felt different now. Guards moved faster. Security drones floated through corridors that were usually empty. Workers whispered that something important was happening on level 7. Rian understood why. The execution had been moved forward. He spent the day working in silence, but his hands moved automatically. His thoughts were somewhere else. He kept asking himself the same question. Why him? There were hundreds of workers in the facility. Stronger people, braver people. Yet Alara had chosen to speak to him. By the time his shift ended, he already knew he would go back. The holding corridor was darker than usual when he arrived. Emergency lights glowed red along the walls. A sign outside the chamber confirmed it. Final transfer scheduled. 10 hours remaining. Alara stood near the barrier, as if she had been waiting. You decided to return, her voice said softly inside his mind. Rian took a slow breath. I came for answers. Alara nodded slightly. You said you need help, he continued. Why can't you escape alone? The outer gate requires human authorization, she explained. Giants are never given control of exit systems. Rian felt a bitter understanding. The Empire trusted humans to control giants, but never the other way around. If I help you, he said slowly, people will get hurt. Alara's expression became serious. I will not harm humans. You can't promise that, Rian replied. I can, she said calmly. That is why I refused the test. The answer surprised him. Alara explained that giants who passed the reproduction test were forced into breeding programs and military control. Their children would belong to the Empire, raised as weapons. She refused because she would not bring life into captivity. Rian felt something shift inside him. For the first time, he saw the test for what it really was, not survival, but ownership. Still, fear remained. If we fail, they'll kill me, he said quietly. Alara did not deny it. Yes, the honesty made the decision heavier. Silence filled the corridor. Machines hummed around them. Somewhere above, alarms sounded faintly as systems changed shifts. Finally, Rian spoke again. If I do this, no one dies. Not guards. Not workers. Alara lowered her head slightly. I accept your condition. The deal was made. But neither of them understood how much it would cost. Over the next hours, Rian secretly accessed maintenance panels and learned the security patterns. Power cycles, camera blind spots, emergency overrides. Every step felt like walking closer to danger. At the same time, something else changed. The connection between them grew stronger. Not a bond like before, but understanding. Rian began to feel Alara's emotions. Patience, sadness, and a deep, quiet strength. Alara, in return, felt his fear and determination. Humans felt everything quickly, strongly. It surprised her. For the first time, she understood why humans survived despite being physically weak. They kept choosing hope, but the facility was already reacting. Security officers noticed system delays. Access logs showed unusual activity. Cameras began tracking Rian longer than before. They were getting suspicious. Hours later, red warning lights suddenly flashed across the corridor. A mechanical voice echoed through the facility. Execution schedule updated. Final transfer in 2 hours. Rian froze. They moved it again, he whispered. Alara's eyes narrowed slightly. The Empire suspected something. There was no more time to prepare. We move tonight, Rian said, his voice shaking but firm. Alara stepped closer to the barrier, her expression calm but intense. Once we begin, there is no return. Rian nodded slowly. He knew that already. For the first time in his life, he was not choosing safety. He was choosing risk. As he turned to leave, alarms echoed faintly in the distance. Guards were already moving toward level 7 earlier than expected. The Empire was closing in. And Rian finally understood something terrifying. Helping Alara escape would not just change her fate. It would change his forever. The facility alarm started before midnight. Red warning lights flashed across the metal corridors, and the sound of emergency sirens filled the air. Workers were ordered back to their rooms, while security teams rushed toward Level 7. Something had gone wrong earlier than expected. Rian knew they had no more time. His hands trembled as he entered the control panel near the holding chambers. Every movement felt loud, even though the corridor was empty. He typed the override code slowly, praying the system would accept it. For a second, nothing happened. Then the energy barrier around Alara flickered. She stepped forward as the field weakened, her massive form casting long shadows across the walls. For the first time since arriving at the facility, she was free. The ground shook slightly as she moved. "Stay behind me," she said calmly inside Rian's mind. Heavy footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor. Guards were already coming. Rian led her through the maintenance path he had memorized. The tunnels were narrow, forcing Alara to move slowly and carefully to avoid collapsing the structure. Every second felt dangerous. Alarms grew louder. Security drones appeared first, floating toward them with scanning lights. Alara raised her hand, pushing one aside without destroying it. She remembered her promise. No humans would be harmed. But mercy slowed them down. More soldiers arrived, shouting orders. Energy weapons fired, striking the walls and sending sparks into the air. One blast hit Alara's arm. She staggered but kept moving, shielding Rian with her body. Through their connection, Rian felt her pain, sharp and heavy like fire under his skin. He nearly collapsed but forced himself forward. "Go," he shouted. "The outer gate is close." They reached the final corridor leading to the exit platform. Massive doors stood ahead, sealed behind multiple security locks. Beyond them lay the open wasteland. Freedom. Rian rushed to the control terminal, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. Warning messages appeared everywhere. Unauthorized access detected. Security override denied. He tried again. Behind him, soldiers filled the corridor, weapons aimed upward at Alara. The commander stepped forward, his voice cold and controlled. "Step away from the console," he ordered. "The giant surrenders, or the human dies." Rian froze. Alara stopped moving. The commander smiled slightly. He understood the situation now. The giant refused to harm humans. That weakness could be used. "You are valuable," the commander said to her. "Return to containment and the human lives." Silence filled the corridor. Rian felt Alara's hesitation through their connection. For the first time, she was unsure. Saving herself meant losing him. Saving him meant returning to captivity. The Empire had forced this choice many times before. Rian understood what she was thinking. Slowly, he looked back at her and shook his head. "No," he whispered. Before anyone could react, he slammed his hand against the emergency release. The system accepted the command. Massive doors began to open, metal grinding loudly as the outside wind rushed inside. Freedom was seconds away. Soldiers shouted and moved forward, grabbing Rian before he could step back. He struggled, but he was only human. Alara took one step toward him, anger rising for the first time. The ground trembled under her weight. The soldiers raised their weapons, ready to fire. But she stopped. If she fought, people would die. She would break her promise. Rian met her eyes across the corridor. Fear was there, but also certainty. "Go," he said quietly. The word hurt more than any weapon. Alara understood. Humans were fragile, but their choices were strong. He was giving her the freedom she could not take herself. The doors opened fully. Cold night air filled the facility. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Alara turned and stepped through the gate into the darkness beyond. The desert swallowed her massive form within seconds. The doors slowly began to close again. Rian was forced to his knees as the commander watched the exit, his expression dark with anger. "The giant escaped," one soldier said. The commander looked down at Rian. "Then the human will answer for it." As the doors sealed shut, silence returned to the corridor. Rian knew what would come next. The deal had worked. Alara was free, but now he would pay the price alone. The facility became quiet after the escape. The alarm stopped. The damaged walls were repaired. Workers were ordered to forget what happened. Official reports said the giant had gone rogue and escaped during a system failure. No one mentioned Rian's name openly, but everyone knew. He was the reason. Rian sat alone inside a small holding room. Metal walls surrounded him, and a single light burned above his head. His hands were restrained, but he did not resist. He already understood his fate. Treason against the Empire had only one ending: execution. Days passed slowly. Guards brought food, but never spoke to him. Sometimes he heard workers whispering outside the door. Some called him foolish. Others called him brave. Rian did not know which one was true. He only knew that Alara was free. And strangely, that thought brought him peace. Far beyond the facility, across endless desert and broken lands, Alara moved through the wastelands. She could still remember the moment the doors opened. The moment a small human chose her freedom over his own safety. Giants did not forget debts. She traveled for weeks, avoiding Empire patrols. The world outside the facility was changing. Other giants were hiding, scattered and afraid. Many had heard rumors about the slaughter centers. Many had already lost their families. When Alara found them, she told them the truth. Not about revenge, about choice. Back inside the facility, Rian was finally taken from his cell. 2 guards escorted him through the long corridors toward the upper levels. Workers avoided looking at him as he passed. No one wanted to be connected to a traitor. The execution platform waited ahead. The commander stood there, watching calmly. "You risked everything for a creature that will forget you," he said. Rian said nothing. He knew the commander was wrong. Before the final order could be given, the lights suddenly flickered. Then the alarms returned. But this time, they sounded different. Emergency signals echoed through the facility. Security screens filled with warnings. External breaches detected. Multiple large life forms approaching. The commander turned toward the monitors, his confidence fading. Outside the facility walls, massive shadows moved through the desert. Giants. Not one. Many. They did not attack the workers. They did not destroy the facility. Instead, they broke open holding areas and freed captured giants and prisoners. Machines were disabled, not destroyed. Guards were pushed aside, but left alive. Alara kept her promise. In the chaos, Rian's restraints were broken by a massive hand reaching through the damaged wall. He looked up, shocked. Alara stood there, her presence calm but powerful. She looked different now. Stronger, not because of the Empire, but because she had chosen her own path. "You came back," Rian said softly. "I made a deal," she replied inside his mind. Outside, giants were already leaving, guiding freed prisoners into the desert. They were not conquerors. They were survivors. Rian stepped outside the facility for the first time without fear. The Empire's control was broken, at least here. Workers looked confused, unsure what came next. Alara lowered herself slightly, so her eyes met his level. "I cannot stay," she said. "My people need me." Rian understood. Their paths were different now. "You didn't fail the test," he said quietly. Alara's expression softened. "No, I refuse to create life in chains." For a moment, neither spoke. The desert wind moved between them, carrying dust and silence. Then Alara turned and walked away, joining the other giants disappearing into the horizon. Rian watched until they were gone. The Empire had feared giant strength for years. They built walls, tests, and slaughter chambers to control it. But in the end, it was not strength that changed everything. It was a single human choice. Rian returned to the colony later, no longer invisible. People listened when he spoke, not because he was powerful, but because he had chosen mercy when fear would have been easier. The story was never written in official records, but those who survived remembered. The giantess who refused to obey, and the human who made a deal and changed the future of both their worlds.